Mr. President, Mr. Chief Executive, if I may put a simple question to you. In our society today, people's confidence in government is terribly important. Whether the leadership has conscience or whether it has any principle would be very important. Today is the 20th anniversary of the June the 4th. 20 years ago, you were just an ordinary AO. Were you saddened by June the 4th? Today, will you tell the people of Hong Kong categorically that you support a vindication of the verdict of June the 4th? Chief Executive. The people of Hong Kong's feelings and attitude towards June the 4th, I fully understand, but it has been many years since the event occurred. The nation has achieved considerable accomplishments on many fronts. It has brought about economic prosperity. I'm sure that the people of Hong Kong would pass objective judgment on the development of the nation. That's my view. Mr. President, I'm asking about the principle and the conscience of the Chief Executive himself. Is the Chief Executive saying that if the economy is doing well, then one can get away with murder? The Hong Kong SAR government, in order to share the benefits, should it bury its conscience? Chief Executive, what I'm saying is that time has gone by. The people of Hong Kong have seen considerable achievements in economic developments and other areas. This has brought about social stability and economic prosperity. I hope that you would trust the people of Hong Kong to come to an objective assessment. People are asking you whether you have conscience. Will the person in the gallery please be let out of the chamber? Please leave the chamber.
Mr. CE. Mr. CE. President, if the CE has finished answering my question, I'd like to ask, mention a point of order. Now, in our council, if the government official has not answered our question, we can raise it. I'd like to know whether the same rule applies in a CE question time, because the CE has not answered my question. Ms. Margaret Ng, even in an ordinary question time, I have said more than once, the public officers attending our council to answer members' questions, they might not be able to satisfy members with their replies. Very often, government officials has provided an answer, and yet members may stand up and say that the question has not been answered. As the president presiding over a council, I cannot compel government officials to answer questions in a way that can satisfy legislators. Our usual practice is to allow members to ask a short supplementary after the main question. If members are not satisfied with the CE's answer, I'm afraid you have to pursue through other means. Can you please clarify your ruling? So is my understanding correct? Are you saying that usually for our rule of procedure for usual council meetings apply to the CE question time as well? Secondly, usually or in ordinary times, you were able to tell whether a government official has answered our question or whether we are just not satisfied with his answer. So are you able to tell the difference today, or are you using your power to say that CE has answered my question already? Ms. Ng. Well, the rules for usual question time applies to the CE question time. So is it your view that the C has not answered your question? Yes, I'm asking about his own conscience. And yes, he was telling me about economic development of the country. His answer is neither here nor there. Let me repeat, if a member is of the view that the CE or the government official has not answered his or her question, then he or she can ask a supplementary question. Mr. CE. Let me say it once again. My view represents the overall view of the community. Their view would also affect mine. What I said was, the impression of the view of the people on this subject. Mr. Leung Kwok-hung. I think the C is putting words into the people's mouth. I'm afraid this is not a point of order. How can you represent me? You cannot represent me. Mr. Leung Kwok-hung, please be seated first. I have a point of order. I'd like to ask the C to clarify, how can he represent me? How can he represent the people of Hong Kong? This is very objectionable. I asked the CE to clarify. If he's saying that he represents the whole community, ask him to withdraw his remarks. Please be seated first. Mr. Man-kwong, I asked the CE to clarify. Why does he think that his view on the June 4th incident can represent the people of Hong Kong and all the people of Hong Kong? I'm saying that I represent ordinary members of the public. Of course, not all the people of Hong Kong. I can repeat once again that the people of Hong Kong's view on the June 4th incident, I said I appreciate their feelings. The incident took place a long time ago, and our country has achieved remarkable achievements in many areas. And the country has also progressed. I'm sure this is my judgment now, and I believe many people agree to my judgment. I respect you. You have already, President, you have told us your view on the June 4th incident, and yet he hasn't. He is not qualified to be the CE. How can he sell his conscience? Mr. Leung Kwok-hung, you are to leave the chamber at once. You cannot represent me. Mr. Leung Kwok-hung. Mr. Leung Kwok-hung. Mr. Leung Kwok-hung. You are to leave the chamber at once. Mr. Cheuk-yan, please be seated first. President, I will give the C a last chance. Otherwise, I will leave in protest because he has put words into people's mouth. Mr. Man-kwong. Now, our rules of procedure is such that when legislator or a government official is speaking, if a legislator would like him to clarify, it is for the government official or the legislator who is speaking to decide whether and how he is going to clarify his remarks. This question time should not be turned into a debate. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Lee Cheuk-yan, please be seated first. Please do not obstruct other members from asking questions. I will walk out in protest because the CE claims that he represents us and the people of Hong Kong. This is not a question of whether this is a debate. Under the basic law, it is the CE's constitutional duty to answer members' questions. He cannot take our questions or take his constitutional authority lightly. I declare the meeting adjourned.
Will members please remain standing while the Chief Executive enters the chamber. The Chief Executive. There are quite a number of members who've yet to put questions. I hope the members will observe the rules of procedure so that members will be given ample time to put questions to the Chief Executive. Those in the public gallery are reminded to observe the order of the meeting. Chief Executive. I must apologize for making members so agitated, but my meaning was very clear. I'm sure that the people of Hong Kong will come to objective assessment having regard to the development of the nation. This is my assessment of the situation. This is not a disrespect to members who may hold different views to this issue. What I mean is that after such a long time, different people will come to their own judgment. We should respect others' judgment. Mr. Simpson Tam. Mr. President, as electoral members, we have the opportunity to put questions and communicate with the Chief Executive direct, but there are many netizens in the community who simply cannot communicate with the Chief Executive. They seem to feel very distanced from the Chief Executive. In other jurisdictions, the presidents, like President Obama and our Premier, also maintain